Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday, December 20th, 2019. Hope everybody had a great day today. I know it's been a long work week, getting ready for that Christmas holiday. Most of you out there shopping. But here tonight, we'll go ahead and give you a full report. Got some interesting stuff to talk about tonight on the Grand Solar Minimum channel. And everything that I'm speaking of has everything to do with this channel. So I just want to point that out before we get into it. Unfortunately, it does involve politics at the end, but it's just about the campaign, not really too much about, well, candidates or anything. But here we go. Our space weather conditions right now, solar wind speeds coming in at 421.3 kilometers per second with a density of 2.2. Taking a look at our sun, it's still blank. We have 37 days in a row now without sunspots here. 274 in 2019. I asked everybody in the chat a few minutes ago on their last minute guesses. Get them in while you can. My guess of 277 is well below, let's just say, I don't see how my prediction will stand at all. So anyway, 284, Mari, that looks good. Take a look at our KP indices sitting at a 2 with a 24-hour max of 2 as well. Our TCI went up to 3.32. That was at 3.22. And every time we do get increased solar wind stream, we do see that thermosphere temperature kind of go up just a little bit. Nothing really crazy, but we did have solar wind speeds reach around 520 kilometers per second, blasting our magnetic field. So there will be slight increases, very minor, in the thermosphere, and it seems to happen every time we get solar wind. We see it drop when there is no solar wind stream, and then when we get lit up by a solar wind stream, the TCI goes up ever so slightly. KP sitting at a 2 with a 24-hour max of a 2 as well. And let's go over to the grandsolarminimum.com, and we will take a look at the big picture here of our star. I'll grab my handy dandy arrow here. That's the eastern limb at the negative 90. So right now the 0 is Earth facing. This is what we have emerging from the eastern limb of our star, that one bright active region, which I kind of mentioned a little bit this morning in this morning's broadcast. We're not really seeing major coronal hole, weak corona. I mean, we got a coronal hole feature there and very weak here on the eastern limb, but at this moment, we don't have anything major developed at this time. Now, as it went on that run, I did see coronal hole outlines here. So that's, something to watch. It could develop and widen up a little bit on us. But as of right now, nothing major, nothing large to deal with at this time. So we will continue to monitor this quiet sun as 2019 winds down for the year. All right, let's get into some headlines tonight. Unfortunately, another report of flooding. This one here, hundreds of villages submerged. Ryu declares state of emergency as severe weather leaves at least 6 dead and over 62,000 people affected here in Indonesia. They declared this emergency today, December 20th, after floods and landslides affected more than 62,000 residents. Status was enforced in preparation for a probable worst-case scenario after waters burst from 4 of the province's largest rivers here, which the state of emergency, the regional administration could no longer cite financial difficulties in disaster handling measures because the central government will provide support through the National Mitigation Agency. Overflowing waters from the rivers of Campak, Sayak, Rakan, and Indragiri have submerged at least 216 villages, 43 districts. This was as of Friday. About 8,798 houses were inundated, as well as 11 kindergartens and 47 elementary schools, 19 junior highs, and 17 senior high schools, according to the province's administration data. And just like what we've reported, every broadcast we go live, every Wednesday, every Monday, and every Friday, it's another story about how we are witnessing extreme flooding, damaging homes, Climate change is happening. It's real, but it's caused by the sun. It's not accelerated. And there's a couple things that I saw from a quote that we'll get into here in just a few articles. But first, series of storm systems to bring heavy rain, flooding, mountain snow, and rough surf from Northern California to the Pacific Northwest into the weekend. A plume of moist air is forecast to continue dousing the northwestern region of the United States with heavy rain, flooding, mountain snow, and rough surf from Northern California to the Pacific Northwest. Into this weekend, hazardous travel conditions are likely, the National Weather Service did warn. They're expected, even though below average rainfall has occurred in the Northwest this autumn, enough rain can occur with this setup to lead isolated flash flooding and mudslides, especially along the western slopes of the Coast Ranges and Cascades into Saturday. This is according to Brett Anderson of AccuWeather. One limiting factor to the rain on this particular setup will cause the fire hose of rain to gradually shift southward into Saturday rather than linger in the same spot along the coast for days. The steady movement of the atmospheric river may be enough to avoid major stream and flooding. However, minor flooding of small streams and short-run rivers flowing out the Cascades are likely. By Saturday, December 21st, the atmospheric river is likely to shift southward from Oregon to parts of Northern California. During the weekend, the moist air continues to drift southward. It is most probably to weaken. However, even with the moving and weakening, the atmospheric river rain can fall as far south as San Francisco and Sacramento, California, by Sunday, December 22nd. Lots of forecasters here, lots of rain. Rainfall from the Bay Area to Sacramento Valley is likely to average around a half to an inch of rain, with local higher amounts as well. However, snow and sleet may occur in Donner Summit late Sunday. From Sunday to Monday, December 22nd to the 23rd, spotty showers are forecast to fall in Southern California. Snow is not expected to cause travel disruptions across the southern part of the Golden State. Some rain showers are likely in Los Angeles. Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I don't need that. Here's a look at our GFS. And that was the feature I showed you guys the other night. We went live shooting down the coast of California. There's 2 of them. Technically 3. Thanks to the watchers. As always, doing the homework, putting in the time, getting us the truth. All right. So let's talk a little bit here. I've already mentioned this. I'm glad to see other bloggers talking about this. And this is how we are in a space age record right now of sun-spotless days. And where we're at right now in this minimum, we are considered in a deep minimum. And a lot of it is expected to continue to be deep like this for a few more months until we get to April of 2020, when we are at the bottom, according to some scientists. They are using this forecast here for solar cycle 25. And folks, you know, I got a little bent out of shape, I guess, when I first saw it. I've listened to Lisa Upton before. She really, for her to be into this field and admitting of what we're going to see here between 24 and 25, to me, this is a safe prediction. In other words, they're probably overshooting it, but even at 115, I mean, we're still well below average. Solar cycle 23 was the closest thing to average. 24 was below average, is 160 to 220 is average sunspots, and they're predicting it to be one. Now, this is where I find it a little kind of funny, I guess, but to say that the weakest cycle in 150 years shows that the trend of the amplitude decreasing is broken, that 25 is all of a sudden going to be the cycle that comes back to life. That's the part I have a problem with. But I think this forecast right here, I think is safe I've seen people. Starman says 91, 97, I think, to the low 100s. I'm in that. I'm in agreement with that. I mean, here we're talking about 15, 20 sunspots. I get it. But just think about what we're experiencing here at the end of solar cycle 24 with around 160 some or close to 150 sunspots. And then we're talking about being at the possibility of maybe 70 to 115. Maybe it's 60 to 115. That's the extreme low part of it, in my opinion, as well. So after looking at this and just kind of seeing it out there on multiple websites and multiple blog sites, I feel like that looking at it now, NASA's not willing to be a total shill for man-made global warming theory. They are giving it some thought that we could see a cycle slightly weaker than 24. At least they're admitting that this next one is going to be weaker than the previous, which would mean that we haven't seen a solar cycle that weak. That's right, folks. At over 200 and some years, the last grand solar minimum, 206 years to be exact. All right, so here's the part of the broadcast where I was talking about a little bit of politics. Al Gore says Democratic candidates should absolutely run on AOC's Green New Deal report. Not surprising. He is definitely drinking the Kool-Aid. Former Vice President Al believes the Green New Deal, or GND as the cool kids like to say, could be a winning issue for Democrats in 2020. The GND is a broad brushstroke, bold proclamation, the details of which are designed to be filled in later. Kind of like that healthcare. They had to. We're just going to pass it and we'll read it later. That's what we were told when they passed it. Anyway, he believes Democratic candidates should use legislation to help generate enthusiasm before the next year's election. Gore also suggested Republicans are flipping on climate change. Absolutely not. In fact, we can prove that as well. Gore also suggests that Republicans are flipping on climate change, that far away from restoration of bipartisan support, particularly since Mother Nature is getting everybody's attention with all these fires and floods and hurricanes, he told reporters. Hurricanes, all those hurricanes this year. That one hurricane that hit a very unfortunate area of the Bahamas. They saw the wrath of this strong Super Cat 5. But Al's telling us there was multiple. In fact, a lot of people were forecasting 1, 2 in this community, I should say. Weather Channel is still giving that big 5 to 6. Same with AccuWeather. Maybe 2 or 3 make landfall, big ones. It's all part of their propaganda, their agenda. Republicans in the Senate torpedoed the activist-backed legislation in March as Democrats called the vote a dog and pony show. The GOP defeated the proposal 57-0. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell called the bill a socialistic ploy designed to kill the economy. I agree with that statement. The resolution introduced in February by New York Republican, AOC called for a 10-year national mobilization towards addressing climate change. A fact sheet published alongside the proposal claimed the plan would be mobilize every aspect of American society on a scale not seen since World War II. The GND would reportedly phase out fossil fuels usage within 12 years, but could cost tens of trillions of dollars. Americans could be forced to pay up to $93 trillion to implement the proposal over just the next decade. We're over $22 trillion in debt now, and that's a 2-decade run. Imagine being $93 trillion more in the hole in the next 10 years. So well over $100 trillion debt in just 10 years. That's insane. Critics claim that the number is exaggerated as the proposal is still in the preliminary stages. It could be. I've heard anywhere from 43 trillion to 100 trillion. So either way, 43 trillion is still a lot of money. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and Cory Booker of New Jersey both of whom running for president, for instance, signed on as Senate co-sponsors of the proposal before it met its demise in the Senate. So why am I mentioning this? It shocks me to see, after what's been happening here lately, that anyone should trust a Democrat at this point. Bernie Sanders, by the way, promises to criminally prosecute fossil fuel executives for destroying the planet. I mean, guys, he's threatening people who have not done anything wrong based on this elite agenda of eliminating fossil fuels. It's just a ploy to change the economy. The oil and gas companies rule everything. And this is a plan by these shady, crooked politicians to change that so they can take control of the currency again and how the world spends money on energy. Because right now, oil is kind of failing the United States when it comes to overseas. See, right now, the United States produces enough of its own oil, it doesn't even need to import oil anymore. That being said, there are countries overseas that want to change the currency on how to pay for oil. The Russians, Iran, and I can't remember the third country off the top of my head. I'm sure it'll pop in my head after the show. But Iran and Russia, there is a third country involved. They want to move to Russian currency to pay for oil and get rid of the dollar currency. So, again, when you hear about things like Gore, who says, yes, press on, continue. This is a great idea to run your campaigns on the GND, as the cool kids say. And then you got Bernie. Sadly, for hysterical liberals, ExxonMobil isn't the only company that takes this position. As the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist reports, only 13% of the energy companies that follow the disclosure framework recommended by the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures are even testing the resilience of their business strategies, and in a scenario where global warming is kept below 2 degrees. This thing reads on here. Let's see. The most telling reaction comes from Senator Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders. The wannabe socialist dictator writes on Twitter, if he wins, he'll pass Green New Deal and criminally prosecute the fossil fuel executives who destroyed the planet. Here's a prediction. We're going to win, pass the Green New Deal, and criminally prosecute the fossil fuel executives who destroyed the planet. That sounds like something a dictator would say. To me, when you talk about deniers, it's right here. Guys like this. Exxon's 2019 outlook for energy predicts no reductions in carbon dioxide emissions from the energy sector through 2040, and no date at which emissions reach net zero. They are openly admitting they have no intention to trying to slow climate change. No, Emily, they're not admitting that. Their research and other research is telling them that it's not carbon or CO2 or anything like that at all that is creating climate change. They've been well briefed. They know it's natural cycles. So does Trump and his administration. They also realize this is a natural cycle. Is man impacting? Maybe a little bit. Very, very, very slight, very small number. But these folks know it's natural. They're not just going to, look, I'm telling you right now, hate him or love him. If this stuff was true, what the Democrats were saying, or any of them, anybody that promotes the GND, if that was really true, honestly, there are people smart enough on the other side of the aisle that would say, you know what, they have something here. I just saw the data. I just saw the science. This makes sense. But the problem is that they don't have anything. They don't use real science. They use temperature gauges to record the world's hottest temperature in one day, but yet the gauge is located on top of a roof, of a slate roof, by the way, folks. Or my other favorite one, where there was an ice cream truck with its engine running all day about 10 feet away from the device that captured the record temperature that day. Thank you, Mr. Softy, for helping out with that record of heat. I mean, this is the kind of world we live in, folks. And channels like us are not appreciated to a lot of people because we're kind of helping connecting the dots, trying to open people's eyes a little bit about what's happening, what's going on. And that's why these people are just being absolutely ridiculous and trying to protect it with every little lie they can tell. But again, ask them to show you the science, or ask them to talk to you about the science and the numbers and the medieval war period and all this. They'll fumble. They'll tell you, oh, you're a denier. You're denying the people like you are on stage with people like the Holocaust deniers. That's what they'll do. They'll deflect an ad hominem attack. That's how you know these folks don't even know what they're talking about. Hey, I'll even go as far as saying Rick Perry doesn't even know what he's talking about. He's a Republican. He's supposed to be in charge of the energy sector of this stuff. He doesn't get it either. He believes in man-made climate change. He just doesn't go as far as these these Democrats out there with the GND. Like how I keep saying GND, like one of the cool kids now. I don't say Green New Deal anymore. I say GND. Anyway, and here we go. Joe Biden willing to cut hundreds of thousands of oil and natural gas jobs. Joe Biden told a debate moderator during Thursday night's Democratic debate that he'd be willing to sacrifice up to hundreds of thousands of jobs if it meant transitioning to a green economy. The answer is yes, Biden said. We should, in fact, be making sure right now that every new building is built with energy contained, that it doesn't leak energy. Okay. That, in fact, we should be providing tax credits for people to be able to turn their homes into solar power. I'm going to stop right there. This is how out of touch Joe, creepy, sleepy Joe Biden is. He doesn't know what he's talking about. This politician is just a puppet. He's just regurgitating talking points. How do I know this? Check this out. U.S. lawmakers stiff solar when gets modest victory in tax deal. This is the budget that is going to prevent the government from shutting down. And in the budget, they have allowed the tax credit for solar as a homeowner to go away. So there is no more tax credits to be filed with solar panels hooked up to your house. Now, the wind sector of this is still receiving tax credits, but no more for the solar because it's tanking so bad. It's tanking so bad. It says here, elsewhere in the spending package, lawmakers laid out $38.6 billion in the Department of Energy for 2020. That's an increase of $2.9 billion over 2019. Legislators increased the budget for Advanced Research Projects Agency Energy by $59 million. Included a $250 million for programs to buoy advanced nuclear reactors. If they're smart enough, they'll throw some money at people who are researching TSI. That's what they need to be watching. Heck, who knows? Maybe I'll send in a request. You never know. We'll start studying TSI. We'll start monitoring it. We do know this, and Lee Wheelbarger actually was talking to me about his boat. Got the really heavy rain system that moved through the DC area when he was in the area earlier this fall, and the clouds were so thick, the rain was so heavy, his boat didn't charge like it usually does. The time it took him to get to full power, it was only at like 3%. And we keep talking about, like, this is the beginning of a grand solar minimum. This is just the very tip of the iceberg, so to speak. Once we get out of solar cycle 25 max and start declining into our next minimum, we're really going to see it. I mean, we're seeing it now. And if you think it's bad now, wait till 2025, 2026, 2027. And then by the time we get to 2030, well, and that's not even talking about if we get a volcano eruption like Tambora. That could happen. John Casey believes it could happen between now and 2037, a major volcanic eruption that could send parts of the world into a year without a summer. History repeats itself. We can't pinpoint when these are going to happen. I get questions all the time too. When is it going to get cold in the UK and the grand solar minimum? Why is it so hot in Australia? They're trying to make a big deal about this heat wave right now, and I'm not minimizing it. It's very, very hot right now in Australia, one of the hottest we've seen in a long time. But I did find articles dating back into the 1930s that were almost 10 degrees Celsius hotter than what it is now. So you just got to dig a little, folks. Some of these people jumping up and down saying the sky is falling. It's happened before, and it wasn't because of the increased amount of CO2 in the atmosphere back in the 1930s. We barely had vehicles running. We weren't nowhere near as industrialized as we are now. So why did it get so hot back then in Australia? And my point I'm trying to say is that GSM is regional. There's so many other cycles that are falling into place right now that a GSM is just part of the big picture. So many things to consider. Will there be a magnetic pole reversal in our lifetime? I don't know. Does it have anything to do with grand solar minimums? Maybe. Maybe not. Weak magnetic field, you think it'd have something to do with it, you know? I mean, we are getting ready to see a very weak magnetic field here in solar cycle 25 and 26. And we keep talking about or hearing about the North Pole racing to Russia right now. Who knows? Weak magnetic field, magnetic pole reversal. I get it. I see why it could be, but it hasn't been proven yet. But it's just another piece of the puzzle. Meanwhile, you have these two different political parties with different ideas. On the one side, the Republicans, who are limiting EPA regulations, who are allowing some of these tax credits to expire because they know they are not profitable for anyone, and it doesn't make sense. And I think everybody that listens to this program would agree with conservatives in Trump's administration to stop these regulations on EPA and everything else. So whether you like the Republicans or not, you agree with these policies. And that's my point. And then you go over to the other side of the aisle, the Democrats, as they are totally opposite. They absolutely 100% believe that cow farts and planes and trains and automobiles are causing global warming. And we need to stop eating beef, as Burger King is already replacing its meat with the Impossible Whopper. Hell, it'll be a few more months before they just stop telling everybody they've done it. They'll just do it. And then you got people like Bernie Sanders promising to throw people in prison if they're an executive for a natural gas company or oil company. You're going to go to prison if someone like Bernie Sanders gets elected. That's fear. And when people get scared, bad things happen. People overreact. So take a look in the mirror, guys, and take a look at these two parties, and you tell me which one's being aggressive. You tell me which party is being forceful and shoving their ideology down your throats without your permission or even asking. They're just doing it. Just like with the impeachment. There's no evidence. There's no proof. There's no factual witnesses that's testified. All of the meetings and depositions were given in a secret room at the Pentagon. So the American people have to start paying attention to that stuff. And then when they look at the policies that some of these Democrats are trying to do, they want to shut everything down in the gas and oil industry. How many jobs is that going to destroy? It's not about the jobs, man. It's about saving the planet. That's not it at all either. This is about changing the economy. Again, these elitists, they know they're losing their grip right now. And people, mavericks like Donald Trump, who are helping turning this country back over to the people. The Dems get scared because they're losing their power now. So whether you like it or not, I know I get complaints when I talk about politics in the show, but it has everything to do with the policies that people like us rely on to continue to stop this nonsense of the taxing of carbon. People, that needs to stop immediately. I'm not saying I'm not for clean air or clean water. I am. I know man pollutes. Man pollutes. There's so much plastic in the oceans. I agree. I understand that. What I'm saying is that these CO2 emissions, this fake G&D, is only here to change the economy so they can continue to have control and power over the American people and globally as well. And I believe right now the administration that's in office is trying to prevent that, trying to keep what's ours remaining ours. So. All right, let's take a look at our outlook of weather. And honestly, guys, it's boring for me as far as talking about any storms. The South is getting pummeled this weekend with some major rain, but other than that, we're really talking about some snow and showers. Now, I did mention how the Northwest is going to see an atmospheric river over the first couple of days of this weekend. Short-lived as this one's moving south. Typically, these things kind of just stay there for a long period of time. But by Sunday, this thing's shooting down into the Bajas, into Mexico, and then reforming across the four corner states as light snow. And then we really don't see a major system until about the 26th of December, and that flows into Canada before more moisture and snow moves into the Northwest and Oregon and Washington once again. And then we get some more moisture drawn from the Gulf here, starting in Texas. That's on Saturday, December 28th. That is our next major system. God bless you. Our next major system moves across the United States. Snow in the northern part, rain on the eastern part of this. And as this storm races towards the East Coast by December 29th, it starts as rain in the Northeast, and that drags that Arctic cold air right behind it. This storm will actually drop a little bit of snow right before New Year's Eve. We're talking maybe 3 to 5 inches quickly, as this also will be a lake event snow for folks in western New York. Now, northern parts of Maine could see some serious heavy snows here from this storm. We could be talking about up to a foot, maybe even 16 inches in isolated areas. So that is the next system that we have to really track, is after Christmas, which is good news. I mean, besides the Northwest getting pummeled this weekend with tons of moisture, California following suit for Sunday, Monday. But for the most part, guys, it's pretty quiet. And New Year's Day, more of the same. Now, we've got a low pressure system in the Southwest, Southern California, rain and snow by the 2nd. Also cold air reinforcing itself in the Northeast, bringing lake effect snows on January 3rd as our next system starts to build across the four corner states and through the Midwest as it gets to January 4th, which this is really far out, but this was going to be a mid-Atlantic state type of storm, and that races off to sea. Now, too many times where I've seen a storm like this form, like this, and this far out, it just says, yeah, it's going in the Atlantic. That's January 5th. All right, we're still, 15 days away from that? This storm could very easily, just a little bit of high latitude blocking, we could see this storm raking the coast, and you can see how stronger it gets once it gets into that cooler waters up here in the Northeast. So that could be our really first major nor'easter for the United States. It's only a watch right now, as this is several days out, but really quiet, minor stuff, except for the Northwest. They're getting the atmospheric river for a few days this weekend, but we don't see another major system until about December 27th, 28th. And as we get into January, I've already looked at temperatures, and we are expecting them to get a lot colder as we move through parts. Now, I think December, we're going to see temperatures right at average, maybe slightly above if you live in the Midwest, the Tennessee Valley. But if you live in the Northwest and the Northern Plains, the Northeast, I think you'll see temperatures right at or just below normal. And then we start to see that cold air start to push down around the end of the year. 2019 goes out kind of cold as more Arctic air, brace yourself, is reaching for the lower 48. So indications that we could see a really cold January through February is definitely there. The evidence that it is building up right now, that cold Arctic air is starting to really grow and get expanded parts of Canada and getting closer to the United States. All right, that's going to do it for me tonight. Mari, did you want to say hello to anyone who is out there in the chat? I know you've
I have a puppy on me.
That's okay.
She's tired. She's making me tired. I'm sorry that wasn't a sneeze earlier, Jake. That was me inhaling my hair.
Sorry about
and
that.
choking.
Okay.
I choked on my own
Thanks
hair.
for TMI.
I know. Hi,
go.
everyone in the chat. I modded on my phone, so let me just see. I got some screenshots, for jogging the old brain of mine. I feel so rusty, Jake. I was gone most of last week because of the Nutcracker, and now I'm just Christmas prepping, and it's been sort of tough. Let's see what we got here. Logan out.
Oh, Logan. Hey, what's up, bud? Good to see you.
He showed up. He said, strange storm with new term, air river.
I don't know. I have to look it up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to thank GOS85. He gave a super chat. Thank you very much, and said Merry Christmas, everyone.
Nice. Thank you.
And then people had some feedback about the political stuff. I think people are starting to get a little numb to all the political BS. It's like, how stupid do they think we are?
But I get it. But also, I cannot, just because there's a few people that get annoyed, I cannot pass up an opportunity to educate people. People need to understand who they're voting for, especially if you are a Democrat and you're loyal to your party. You need to understand that the people in your party really want to change the way things are done on this planet, not just here in the United States, but globally. And look, I'm not afraid of change, but let's make sure it makes sense, and let's do it the right way. That's all I'm saying. And
the globalist agenda has been, it's some shady stuff. So the more you research and step into that rabbit hole, the more dark this world seems and is. So, Matthew Ronson put a quote in the chat, and he said, "Just because you have no interest in politics does not mean politics won't take an interest in you." So, that's true. I mean, a lot of people get a little upset that we cover politics. Even, my silly parody song, people are like, "Don't do it. Please, no politics." But politics is heavily interwoven into everything we say or do. So we have no choice but to pay attention to politics very closely. Politics will affect you wherever you are. Just little things like getting your infrastructure in your hometown, be able to handle floods and all that. Everything to get things done in this world is politics. You have to be the change, and it starts at a local level. And people interested in the grand solar minimum and adaptation, I am encouraging people to educate their local governments. It's a far shot. I don't have a lot of faith in the government in general, but you have to try to be involved and get the ball rolling somehow. Find out what your local area's plans are for mitigation, adaptation, upgrading infrastructure, what they're working on, what they're planning on, and perhaps just getting them to think about it if they're not. Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of people, cities with their heads in there, not doing anything. Right, Jake?
Yep.
Let's see. I don't know. Let me hop in the chat. Cheryl popped in and said, hi, bye. She hopped in and then she said she had to go. So it was good seeing you, Cheryl. I saw Richard in there, Matt, Jason Smith, Sweet Georgia Peach. I don't have
Jesse.
My chat. I don't have the chat up. Jesse. So I know Jesse and Richard were talking about storing meat. That one might be a good conversation with our next call-in show. I'm upgrading the call-in line to a toll-free number, and we have to add minutes to our call-in show. That all costs money, and I'm juggling stuff with Christmas, so I'm going to put a plan together this weekend and figure out what the best time would be to do that, and we'll get that going. And I don't have the chat up, Jake. That's all I got.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us tonight. Unless there's some breaking news over the weekend, we'll be back Monday morning. We hope everyone has a great holiday weekend. Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever it is you celebrate. We hope you have a great holiday coming up. We do plan on doing normal broadcasting Christmas night. However, in Christmas morning, I do not believe we will have any type of show. We will be closed on Christmas. Again, If we get some breaking news over the weekend, of course, we'll cut through. But at this point, I think Wednesday is a safe bet. We won't be here. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday next week will be our programming schedule. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for tuning in for the Grand Solar Minimum News. We will talk soon and have a great weekend, guys. Take care.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.